5 surprising animals that live in the desert. The desert might look bleak, endless, and utterly devoid of life, but in reality, the desert is absolutely teeming with life, and many creatures have made their homes here. From giant creatures to the tiniest ones on the planet, the natural ecosystem of the desert is fascinating if we take a closer look. Desert animals may achieve a careful balance between hunter and prey, predators and herbivores, without completely disrupting the ecosystem of other desert inhabitants. Many desert-dwelling species are flexible and adaptive, and some animals you'd be surprised to know are actually very at home in the sand dunes. These creatures are found in different regions and appear to be unaffected by the severe conditions of the desert. And to adapt to such weather, desert animals exist in various shapes and sizes. They figured out how to deal with the hot sun. Furthermore, they spend most of their time away from humans. Like bats. These creatures are generally shy, and while you might think they live exclusively in dark, scary caves, the forest region, or cities, bats can actually live in the desert too. Bats are actually the only group of mammals that can fly. This capacity, along with the ability to travel at night using echolocation, has resulted in a rather diversified and numerous order of bats. Like most mammals, the body of bats is covered with hair apart from their wings. Although bats have the same arm and hand skeletons as humans and most other animals, the bat's hand and finger bones are extraordinarily long and thin. The skin between the arms, fingers, torso, legs, and feet appears fragile. However, it is resistant to ripping when pierced by sharp things. The 900 bat species found worldwide range in size from the 0.5-ounce bumblebee bat, and with a 6-inch wingspan, to the 3.3-pound flying fox with an 80-inch wingspan. But which type of bat can we find in the desert? North America is home to a plethora of bat species. The southern deserts are home to 11 families and more than 18 species. Big free-tailed bat, Brazilian free-tailed bat, Mexican free-tailed bat, vampire bat, and others are more unique. Now, the big question: how do they survive in deserts? Do they just keep flying to populated areas to gather food? Do they hibernate? What about water? Well, according to researchers from Israel's Ben Gurion University, it is unusual because bats are supposed to have significant water loss rates via evaporation due to their enormous bare wings and the energy they spend to fly. It might give important insight into how bats could adapt to a changing environment in the future. The researchers also discovered that total water loss in the desert-dwelling Pipistrellus cohuli was just 80% of that of other non-desert species. According to prominent researcher Dr. Muoz Garcia, total water loss is the sum of epidermal and respiratory water losses. These findings give essential insight into how bats can adapt to substantial changes in their environment. Another creature seen in the desert is the snowy egret. The word snowy in its name does not mean that it lives in an icy cold land. The snowy egret is one of the most attractive herons, with perfect white plumage, black legs, and vivid yellow feet. As the egret forages, those feet appear to stir up or herd tiny water creatures. The snowy egret possesses feathers that are so white that they virtually sparkle in the light of a full moon. It stands nearly 2 feet tall and weighs somewhat less than a pound. It has 3 to 4 feet of wingspan, which is impressive. A white egret has a dagger-like black beak, yellowish eyes, long and thin black legs, and prominent yellow to orange feet as an adult egret. The baby egret resembles an adult egret, but its beak is paler and its legs are lighter with a yellow streak down the backs. Now, these birds are not just in deserts. Despite being primarily a bird of the Pacific, Atlantic, and Gulf coastlines, the snowy egret has spread over most of the United States. It breeds around the coasts in estuaries and along river mouths and inland near stream systems, lakes, and ponds. It breeds in riverine habitats, impoundments, and resting ponds in the southwest. Some snowy egrets live year-round in the warmer portions of their range. Others, which nest in northern locations, move southward through Mexico, across the Caribbean, and far into South America for the cold. But this bird loves to live around the river and coast, so why would it migrate to a desert with no water? The simple answer is that the snowy egret is not picky about building its nest during the off-breeding season. Furthermore, its food habits are inherently different. A snowy egret will consume almost anything to survive, making it well adapted to the uncertainty of desert climates. But so far, we have discussed only creatures that can fly, meaning they can switch up their location anytime they like. What if we told you that giraffes can also live in the desert? Giraffes, with their high legs and long necks, are the world's tallest animals. The legs of a giraffe alone are higher than most humans, standing at around 6 feet. Giraffes can run as quickly as 35 miles per hour over short distances and cruise effortlessly at 10 miles per hour over greater distances because of their towering legs. Giraffes take advantage of their height by feeding on leaves and buds in trees that very few creatures can reach. So there's no competing for food there, especially with their long 21-inch tongues that help them snag leaves in harder-to-reach places. This mammal eats most of the time and, like cows, regurgitates and chews their food as cud. A giraffe consumes hundreds of pounds of leaves every week and must travel long distances to acquire nourishment. With that said, this mammal lives in arid savanna, grasslands, and open forests. In the hunt for food, they will migrate into woodland regions with thick greenery. Acacia is the primary food source for giraffes, and they consume grass and tree fruit on occasion, although their preferred trees are acacia and combretum. Here's a fun fact. This tall creature requires about 75 pounds of leaves every day to maintain its body mass. It necessitates that they graze for food at least 12 hours every day. The giraffes consume trees that are frequently wide apart, and their groups tend to feed in a disorganized arrangement. This mammal lives in exceedingly arid environments and will drink considerable amounts of water to survive. They drink water every couple of days and consume an average of 10 gallons on those days. They also get water through their diet of acacia leaves and foliage, which allows them to live longer in arid locations where water is rare. As acacia leaves are their favorite, the giraffe's food is mainly composed of them, which has contributed to their specialized lengthened necks designed for reaching the tops of trees. The giraffes thrive in the savanna's wet environment, as do the acacia leaves that make up most of their food. So how could they possibly live comfortably in the desert? Well, for one, they drink gallons of water at a time and can store water like camels, so that certainly makes life easier. Being large in a desert environment isn't necessarily a bad thing. You certainly have less competition when you want access to food and water. But that doesn't mean that tiny ones can't thrive here. Case in point, the spiny mouse. Spiny mice are tiny animals with hairless scaled tails that resemble mice of the genus Mus. However, their coats are covered with highly stiff guard hairs comparable to hedgehog spines. And this characteristic is the basis of the famous moniker Spiny Mouse. Genetic research shows that African spiny mice are more closely related to gerbils than ordinary mice, despite their anatomical resemblance to mus members. Golden spiny mice are only found in small areas of the Middle East and Africa. They were exclusively located in the Egyptian desert's northeastern corner and Saudi Arabia's southern Sinai until recently. This tiny creature can be found in dry locations with deserts and savannas characterized by rocky holes. They live on terrain made up of dried-out riverbeds and boulder-strewn slopes, and may hide here by squeezing between cracks and remaining safe from predators. The tint of their pelage also helps them blend into the desert surroundings. Spiny mice often do not have a family home and live in a small community. Regarding their food and eating habits, spiny mice eat insects and plants that can be found in deserts easily. Now, we all know that loons are migratory birds that nest in wooded lakes and big ponds in North America, Greenland, and Iceland. However, they are named for their clumsy, awkward look when traveling on land, and they spend the winter on the Pacific and Atlantic coastlines of North America and Iceland. Loons have bright red eyes, dark spots and necks, and pale spotting, banding, and checkering on their rear ends. They may grow 3 feet long and weigh up to 12 pounds, and they eat mostly fish and invertebrates. The common loon enjoys lakes with isolated coves, islands, clear water, and an abundance of tiny fish in its nesting region. It also lives in reservoirs and tranquil river waters, as long as there is enough space on the water surface for it to take off. According to McIntyre and Barr, the bird looks for nesting grounds on the protected land of the leeward side. Now, why would this bird prefer leaving the river or lakeside and living in a dry and hot land? Although many loons live in rivers and bigger bodies of water, they are happy to live in shallow pools of water as long as they have adequate shade and fish to eat. Now, which of these 5 animals, bats, snowy egret, giraffes, spiny mouse, and loon, was the most surprising for you? Tell us in the comments. I was definitely taken aback by the snowy egret. If you enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button for more videos from the Animal Booth channel. Thanks for watching.